Hey legends, I hope you're all keeping well. This is Hellmouth Hotline. I'm your host, Rodney Stewart. We're doing season 2 once more of Buffy the Vampire Slayer within a little episode which was a lot more enjoyable than I was expecting it to be. This is entitled Bewitched, Bothered and Bewildered. Let's get into it. Alright guys, so in this episode it is coming up on Valentine's Day, and Xander is the main focus of this episode. And during a patrol through the cemetery at the beginning of the episode, Xander shows Buffy a silver necklace he intends to give Cordelia the following night for Valentine's Day. The next day at school, Xander witnesses Amy Madison using magic to avoid a homework assignment. And if you remember the season 1 episode entitled Witch, if memory serves, the main villain of that episode was Amy's mother. So this is raising alarm bells for Xander, knowing what happened with her mother in that episode. So you're expecting her to be the big bad in this episode, and it's not so much the case. She does use a magic spell that causes a lot of trouble in this episode, but she doesn't become the big bad villain you're expecting in the episode. Soon after, Giles runs into Jenny Calendar. However, their relationship remains frosty after the whole thing with Angel turning bad and her knowing the whole backstory situation. This is a very sketchy moment for them. Buffy is still very cold towards Miss Calendar, and Giles, being Buffy's watcher, is more on Buffy's side. Even though he's got insanely strong feelings for Miss Calendar, he's going to back Buffy up 100% of the way. Giles deciding to take Buffy Giles deciding to talk to Buffy, though, in this part of the episode is more important than making amends with Jenny. Giles warns Buffy that Angelus becomes particularly vicious around Valentine's Day and suggests she stays indoors the following nights. Meanwhile, Cordelia is insulted by Harmony and the Cordettes, as they're known, her friend circle, revealing to Cordelia that her relationship with Xander is not a secret, as she once thought. And Cordelia is starting to get the cold shoulder from her close friend circle in this episode, because she is essentially dating a dork. Nobody wants that in high school. It's the whole cool gang that she was part of, and this is a real stab in the back for them. So that night at the Bronze, there's a dance happening, Halloween night, Valentine's Day night, and Xander gives the necklace to Cordelia, but after accepting it from him, she breaks up with him under pressure from her friends. Xander's heartbroken, and the next day he finds Amy and blackmails her into casting the love spell upon Cordelia so he can take revenge by breaking up with her. However, as he intended to use the spell for revenge rather than true purpose, the magic goes wrong, with Cordelia becoming the only female not to be affected by the spell, protected by her necklace, essentially. The necklace is part of the magic spell. There's a nice little moment in this episode whenever Xander approaches Cordelia and asks for the necklace back, and she's acting all super cool sort of a thing, and he's asking for it back. She's like, but I thought it was a gift. And he's like, yeah, well, it was a gift last night, but today it's nothing but scrap metal. And Cordelia says, that's in my locker. But Xander's like, I can wait. So as he stands off to the side, she goes to her locker, opens up the door, and we see like a camera angle from inside the locker out towards her, and she comes in close so that Xander doesn't see what she's doing. So he thinks she's in there simply lifting the necklace out of the locker. She's actually hiding herself taken the necklace off. She's actually wearing it at this point. So, you know, Cordelia actually has more feelings for Xander than anybody really knows. The following day, after the spell's cast, Xander is shocked to find Cordelia repels his advances. You know, she's hurt that he asked for the necklace back, and he retreats to the library. Buffy makes it clear that she is attracted to Xander, but Amy interrupts him, tells Xander she believes the spell went wrong, and she begins to act similarly to Buffy. So Xander rushes home and finds Willow in his bed waiting for him, where she attempts to seduce him. So this leads into, you know, the bulk of the episode, where every female, not just in the school but anywhere Xander goes, are trying to seduce him. The following day, all the girls from Ideal High obsessively start following Xander around the corridors. Harmony criticises a shocked Cordelia for breaking up with Xander. Xander seeks help from Giles, who is appalled by Xander's foolishness. Giles goes looking for Amy so that she can reverse the spell, while Xander barricades himself in the library, which is another funny moment in the episode. Like, he pulls this stack of drawers across the library and tries to barricade the door with it, but the doors to the library open outwards, not just inwards. So, you know, he thinks he's safe, and Buffy gets in and attempts to seduce a reluctant Xander. Amy also arrives and becomes jealous of Buffy, ultimately casting a spell that changes Buffy into a rat. An angry Giles orders Xander to go home, while he attempts to make Amy reverse the spell. God almighty, what's wrong with my words tonight? Oz turns up in the library, and again, as I said in the last review we did in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Zoz. What the heck is going on with my words tonight? Oz is a super cool, laid-back character in this series. It never lets anything bother him too much, but he turns up in the library at one point in this episode, and he punches Xander to the floor, and he's like, I was up all night listening to Willow crying down the phone at me about you, and I was left with an uncontrollable need to hit you. So now that he's done that there, he goes back to his super cool, laid-back ways and actually puts his hand down in friendship and lifts Xander back up off the floor. That's what I like about just go off on a little tangent for a few seconds. It was crazy back in the 90s compared to now. People get super obsessed, and if someone does someone wrong, we tend to hold grudges a lot now. Recently, I found out some news about a close friend of mine, and it's just such a backstabbing thing that happened that literally I'm just finished with him at this point. And I took him and a crap load of mutual friends off social media and whatnot. It's just my social media for about 5 years now has just been a place where people were just there to watch, check out what everybody else was doing, and there's a lot of backstabbing, chat, this, that and the other. And just over the last 5 or 6 years, like, a lot of people have been taken out of it and done a lot of that last night again. But that's these days. Back in the early 90s, there was not so much social media and whatnot. We were all just, there was no smartphones. The world was a smaller place. And if something happened between friends, back then, we would have walked up to each other in the street, thrown a punch, had each other, kicked 7 shades of shit out of each other, and then go for a drink after it, and that was it. Problem sorted, done and dusted, everything fine and well. And that's kind of what happens with Oz's character in this episode. So, to get back to the episode, an angry Giles tells Xander to go home. He attempts to get Amy to reverse the spell, and Oz goes looking for the rat form of Buffy, who's gone down into the boiler room of the high school. As Xander's leaving the school, he finds the spell is becoming stronger and more uncontrollable, and a lot of the girls have actually, the Cordettes have turned on Cordelia at this point, and they're actually like holding her down, pulling her hair and stuff, because how the heck could you let an angel like Xander get away? You're cold-hearted, and they're ready for pretty much killing her at this point. He saves Cordelia from an attack by Harmony and the girls. Xander and Cordelia seek shelter at Buffy's home, locking Joyce out when she too falls under the spell. While in Buffy's room, Xander is they think that they're safe. They go up to Buffy's bedroom to hide, and Xander's like, it's okay, we're safe now, they can't get us here. And at that point, Angel turns up, pops in through the window. Of course he's evil now, but he still has the invite to Buffy's home so he can get in through the window. And he's like, it works in theory, and he drags Xander out the window, who intends to kill him to upset Buffy. Xander is saved by an infatuated Drusilla at this point. She turns up, she's also under the spell, and she's getting ready to offer eternal life to Xander, and I'll kill you, he can become a vampire, I love you forever, this sort of thing. But just as Cordelia, God almighty, but just as Drusilla is about to turn Xander into a vampire, a group of girls from the school arrive and accidentally save him from Drusilla, and attack him. That just gets to a random point at this episode. There's just so much happening on screen at the one time. Then Cordelia saves Xander from the girls, and Xander barricades himself in the basement with Cordelia, who is touched to learn that Xander performed the spell for her. The love-crazed mob breaks through the door and attacks Xander and Cordelia, just as Giles and Amy manage to lift the spell. Buffy regains her human form, and the mob disperse, uncertain of why they were in there in the first place. Xander, or Cordelia, offers the explanation. It was the best treasure hunt ever, sort of a thing. It's just a random first idea to come to her head, but people seem to accept it, and that's the end of it. The next day, Buffy and Xander talk about the events and decide it could be worse. Cordelia comes by with her friends, and they start making fun of Xander, just as usual, and Xander walks away, head down. It's back to the old jab sort of thing. Cordelia suddenly snaps and tells her friends that she's way cooler than any of them, because she makes up her own mind about what she wants, and she dates whoever the hell she wants. She then catches up to Xander, and they walk away together holding hands, and she's sort of freaking out at this point, because what the heck have I done? My friends aren't going to talk to me again. And Xander's like, of course they're going to talk to you again, but if it helps, anytime we're together and thereabout, we can argue a lot. So there's a nice little tender moment between the two of them at the end of the episode. This one here was absolutely brilliant. That whole sequence with Angelus and Drusilla outside Buffy's house, and she saves Xander from Angelus, and Angelus is saying, obviously I drove you more mad than I thought I did, sort of thing, and he skulks off behind a tree. When Xander gets saved by Cordelia and they run into the house, Drusilla, now part of the gang underneath the spell, she tries to enter the house, but of course she hasn't got the invite, so she gets trapped at the threshold and can't get through the door. And Angelus is there to rub it in a little bit. Whenever she realises what's happened, he's like, oh, sorry Drew, you haven't got the invite. It's a great little episode. Originally aired February 10, 1998, so it did come out around Valentine's Day. Written by Marty Nixon and directed by James A. Contner. It's a very, very good sort of semi-standalone episode. Like, we don't get a bigger look at the entire picture of the whole series at this point, but it was a genuinely nice little piece of comic relief from the overall seriousness of the season 2 of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and I genuinely do enjoy these sorts of shows. And I know some people have kind of questioned, you're doing a horror podcast, why the heck would you do Buffy the Vampire Slayer? And some people don't recognise it as horror, but it's like a mainstream horror sort of a thing. This was before Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Television horror wasn't really so much a big thing, when like the vampires and werewolves and all that sort of thing. There's a few shows kind of touched on it. To the best of my knowledge, I could just be talking out of my ass at this point. There could have been a lot of shows. Like you did have The Outer Limits and the Twilight Zone and that sort of thing. But this here for Northern Ireland, where I live at, this was the first time that I can personally remember that a show that dealt with that sort of thing was on at a reasonably early hour. It used to be that sort of thing you wouldn't have seen on television at least 9 p.m. at night, and over here they were airing it at about 6 p.m, 7 p.m. So, it was fairly mainstream for the sort of stuff that they covered in the episodes. But fantastic episode. I really did enjoy this one. If you've never seen it, definitely go check it out. This has been a production of